Motion carries. Recording. Very good. Item number 5, executive directors. What do you have for us today?
Mr. Chair, members of the TAC, just a couple of quick announcements. I'd like to introduce the newest member of the EMAC committee, John Pratt's here visiting with us today. You selected him at your last TAC meeting and he was able to participate in the EMAC meeting. So John, we welcome you. You have a wealth of background as it relates to transportation.
I like picking on wrong names.
You were a council member in the town of Prescott Valley back in the day, so we feel that we're grateful to have all your experience, skills, and look forward to working with you, John.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Next announcement is we do have the Kimberly's position as our planner currently posted. It closes on the 10th. So we hope to have a replacement as soon as possible, again, focused on transit and mobility activities. So Lindsay's helping to pitch in and we're doing the best we can to cover that, but definitely need that position. So next announcement, or last one, is on Sundog Connector. We will be having a kickoff meeting for the TAC of the project. Just for clarification and reminder, this TAC body is absolutely included in that, but it is a separate TAC for the project. So TAC members, you're more than welcome, all of you, to participate in that. You should have received notice for it. It's Tuesday, the 10th at 1 p.m. in the town of Prescott Valley at the Crystal Room. And that TAC will not only include those of you that are able to participate as a TAC here, but we've expanded it to include some additional representation from the various communities of planners and various administration level positions. Again, to distinguish this with the meeting at the end of May, which will be a stakeholder meeting. So I know some of the public is here and some of the public is watching, so I just want to be clear about kind of what's happening at this point. So the technical meeting next week will be a meeting, a group that meets on a regular basis to provide input and oversight for the project, management of the project, to give input. And then the stakeholder meeting at the end of May, there will only be, I think, 2 of those, and I'm glad Matt's on the screen. He can help remind me and clarify also. But there should be only about 2 of those stakeholder meetings where we want to have representation of various groups, such as the Homeowners Association, Save the Dells, and various organizations throughout the community. But more in particular, representatives of those particular bodies. So we will be having that at the end of May. The date hasn't been decided. We'll announce that shortly and make that invitation. Matt, am I hitting that right? Am I missing something you want to add to that?
No, that's correct. I think you hit it there, Vinny. But yeah, that we're working on coordinating that date for the first stakeholder meeting that will be coming out soon, looking towards the end of May or sometime around that time frame. That's when we'll start kind of the initial discussions, bringing everybody together to consolidate and make sure that everybody is getting input involved in the project there. And as you said, there will be a second stakeholder meeting further along in the process when we start looking at some of the items such as the alternatives and all those specific type items that we want to make sure are addressed when we look at the development alternatives, what's important, what needs to be analyzed, and all those different components to it. But correct there, Vinny.
Thank you, Matt. And then Lindsay's going to be working on a monthly newsletter to keep, you want to speak about that, Lindsay, to make sure we have good communication.
You want to speak to that now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm developing a monthly newsletter or as needed, so at least monthly. And it'll go out to the various stakeholder groups and members of the public who express interest in getting this information. And that's just to make sure that people know where their input is most valued. Of course, our meetings are public, but there's a better time for certain input. So those stakeholder meetings will help, and the newsletter will help convey that kind of information.
So, and then maybe the last part to this, again, there will be a community meeting open to all of the public in the summertime. So those are a few things that are coming up as it relates to the Sundog connector. With that said, happy to answer any questions or comments.
Seeing nothing further, next item would be item number 6 would be a mobility management and transit update. Lindsay Post.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So for mobility management and transit updates, the biggest thing is that we recently learned about a new funding program through the FTA called Safe Streets for All. This is for towns, tribes, MPOs, and transit agencies. It is not flowing through state DOTs. It is focused on development or updates of a comprehensive safety action plan, or just simply an action plan, or towards planning, design, and development activities in support of an action plan, or implementation of projects identified in previous action plans. So that's exciting for us because we've got a few things that are running concurrently as that. So we've got funding for the active transportation plan, which we spoke about a little bit. And so we hope this will be a nice complement to that work and see how we can apply for funds there. We expect a NOFO to be released this month, though they do say that's an estimate. So we'll hope to see that soon. And I'll be giving that information out to our transit agencies in the area. For instance, Yavapai Apache Transit is hoping to expand, and maybe that's something that they can use for implementation services. One other exciting thing in Prescott Valley with their micro transit service, we recently got, you're seeing it on the screen now, a picture of the van that they have. It's now branded as the Yava line or the YAV. We've got this picture, and then I think we have another one, Allison. And so there's the front with the bike rack. So already lending itself to a multimodal connectivity. We're really, really excited about this. Pedro's worked really hard in Prescott Valley. And so I think we're still on track for an implementation in August. And with Yavapai Apache Transit, we hope maybe there's going to be some further connections. So lots of exciting things in that world. Further, we also received funds through ADOT for a community marketing plan, and that'll be very useful in marketing the service provided by the YAV line. In other news, we've got this month the local coordinating council meeting, and that's for transit agencies in the area. I'll be giving them the information on the Safe Streets for All program, as well as some information that we learned about from the FTA at ASTA. So there were some great sessions that we got regarding environmental justice and things like that. So I'll be disseminating that information. And I also hope to engage them in helping me update how we approach the local coordinating council for transit. I want to make it more beneficial to them and make it so they're not feeling like they're, just there for local match dollars. So I look forward to being able to share some updates with you at our next TAC meeting to that end, as well as hopefully introduce a new staff member. So those are my updates for mobility management and transit, Mr. Chair, unless there's any questions.
Any questions of Lindsay? Moving on.
It was an unlucky number.
Wasn't lucky today, but we have a 13. We'll move on to item number, listed as item number 8, the Rural Transportation Advocacy Council, RTAC update. Kevin Adams, I see you were with us virtually.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are in what we hope will be the last phase of this year's legislative session. That's basically enacting the budget. That's one that is historically very difficult to gauge the level of progress that they're making and how close they are to coming to a completion. We have passed the 100th day of session. That is typically what they target for adjournment. They usually go beyond that. Very rarely do they meet that date. On the other end of the spectrum, they need to pass that budget prior to July 1st and the start of the new fiscal year. More times than not, they're closer to the 100-day mark than they are to July 1st. Last year was an exception. They basically went all the way until, they had, I think, one or 2 days to spare in late June. Much of that was because of how closely split the legislature is on a partisan basis. Currently, the Republicans control a 31-29 and 16-14 advantages in both chambers. And basically, if they're going to pass a budget on a partisan basis, neither caucus has a vote to spare. They need every single member of that majority caucus to vote in favor of the budget. And that creates some extreme difficulties, particularly when members use that vote as leverage to possibly add something into the budget. And so I think we're probably leaning towards that late adjournment again. Another big factor with the budget this year is the historical level of revenue balance that they have to work with. They're expected to have roughly 5.3 billion over what is needed to pass last year's budget. If you were to use that as a comparison, of that amount, 2.8 billion is one time in nature, and that is really what we're targeting as far as transportation and the appropriation of additional funding for projects across the state. And I think and while there's going to be a lot of competition for that funding with things such as capacity for additional tax cuts, funding for the governor's proposal to create a new statewide water authority for water development. But transportation is clearly in the mix. And of course, we've got our RTAC priority project bill that was developed with all of the greater Arizona COGs and MPOs, an alternative list of state projects that was crafted when we ran into opposition as far as the inclusion of local projects in our list. And in response to that alternative list, Senate leadership has indicated that they very much support that original list of projects. And as leadership continues to meet on the budget, it appears that that is clearly in the forefront and is the more likely approach that they will take to as far as the inclusion of projects in the budget. And that's not to say that there won't be state projects as well, although yesterday the governor signed into law Senate Bill 1239, which will appropriate 400 million for the construction of the last segment of the I-10 widening between Chandler and Casa Grande. And there was a need to expedite the approval or securing that funding because ADOT is applying for a mega grant. And this is one of the new federal competitive grant programs, which is directed towards major infrastructure projects across the country. The minimum grant award is 100 million. So these are very large scale in nature projects. And that 400 million that we appropriated at the state level will be used as matching funds to make ADOT's grant application that much more competitive. They're going to be seeking 300 million. The project total is estimated at right about $1 billion. But if we were to bring in that additional 300 million in federal funding to go towards what ADOT is calling the state priority, I think that will have tremendous impact and benefit for the state program going forward, as there'll be less and less reliance on program funding for the I-10 if we are able to secure this additional 300 million in federal funding. But with all of that said, we're another issue we got to look at is, yes, there's this 2.8 billion that's available, And I think we've done a good job of demonstrating the demand and the need that is out there. But part of what leadership is going to have to decide when they draft a budget is just what level are they going to dedicate to transportation. And even if the need and the demand is demonstrated, you've got a lot of very fiscally conservative members. And I think they'll want to pare down the spending levels just because that is what they are inclined to do. We saw that with last year's budget, where originally there was 115 million that was directed to ADOT for pavement rehab. And in the final version, that was reduced down to 90 million, not because there were thoughts that that additional 25 million was excessive or wasteful, that there wasn't a need for it. There was just basically demand among many legislators to lessen the amount of spending in the overall proposal. And so I think that sort of attitude will definitely impact what's included in this year's budget as well, even though they've got the revenue capacity to basically direct a tremendous amount to transportation. So I will certainly keep everybody posted on developments. But again, I think we're looking at probably late June for enactment. And I do think that we are in real good shape as far as additional funding being directed to Greater Arizona projects, including those that we have basically submitted from the CYMPO region. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Kevin, thank you. Any questions from Kevin Adam with RTAC? Additional transportation funding is always exciting, especially for large scales. Thank you for that update.
Thanks. And I have to cut over to Flagstaff MPO, so I'm going to have to leave you, but I appreciate your time, and I'm always available if you've got any questions, that or any follow-up that you want of me. So again, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin, for all your work. I just have a quick comment. I guess it's more of an announcement. I just remembered. Senator Sinema is planning to be here tomorrow. She's going to have two meetings. One's about an update on the fire situation in the area. The meeting right after that, there's going to be a transportation discussion and forum. They asked if I would facilitate the conversation, so CYMPO will offer their 2 cents along with the other elected representatives. Going to be there, John. John will be there and the other elected. So, we look forward to that discussion. So just a comment for the group.
Well, that's terrific. And Vinny, and I'm sure most of you all probably know that she was the key architect and probably the most influential member of the Senate as far as getting that federal infrastructure law passed. And so she has I suspect she's going to have a tremendous amount of influence in how the US DOT and federal highways and FTA implements. And so keep that in mind, that I think that she can be tremendously helpful moving forward. So I hope you have a real productive conversation.
Thanks for saying that, Kevin. And her aide and we had a conversation, and the RTAC bill and effort is on their radar, which was really neat to hear, that they acknowledge that. And, so they're obviously very supportive of that, from a state standpoint. So we'll put that plug in. Thanks, Kevin.
You bet. Thank you.
Didn't ask you to notice for the meeting.
Don't know. Not my meeting in the sense that it's the senator's meeting. They contacted me and just asked if I would facilitate it. And that's all that I got. So it's her office and who's included. The only thing her aide said to me was they were going to attempt to keep it relatively small. I don't know what that means, to be honest. But, I offered her our CYMPO executive board as they represent all the Quad City area. But it seemed like they already had a list in mind. And I don't know who all is on it, to be honest.
Anything else? Any other comments? If not, we'll move on to item number 9, which is presentation, consideration, and discussion regarding the urban SDK technology. Lindsay, what's your list?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. We have a guest joining us today for this item, Micah Dickman from Urban SDK, and I'll introduce him in just a second. Urban SDK provides data-driven visualization and optimization tools. We especially found value in their traffic counts and modeling tools. Their products provide a lot of different data points, including origin and destination, traffic patterns, and safety. This data would be useful for our regional transportation plan 2050, safety plans, active transportation plans, and a lot more. We want to give you a demonstration of that, and that's what Micah is here for today. And so we're asking the TAC to observe and offer their thoughts. I'll ask that you offer your thoughts via email since we've got the vendor here with us today. If this is something that we would like to move forward on or consider moving forward on, we have some cost breakdown that we'd like you to consider as you view this demonstration. So an annual license would cost $32,500. And if this is something that we like and want to move forward with, CYMPO would propose covering 50% of the fee and splitting the remaining amount between Prescott Valley, Chino Valley, and the county based on population. Dewey Humboldt is included, but we would do that. We would take that as part of our fee as part of our license. And so you'll see a breakdown in just a second of what that would look like. Municipalities, given their own license for this, would be able to use it as needed for their own work as well. And so from here, I'll go ahead and introduce Micah Dickman, and then we'll allow him to answer any questions you may have. And then I'll just go ahead and ask for your feedback via email to me. And if I need to answer any questions beyond that, I'm sure Micah and his team can help us. So from here, I'd like to introduce Micah. You can share your screen when you're ready. And thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Lindsay, for that introduction. And thank you to the rest of the technical committee for having me today. We're very excited about this potential opportunity to partner with your agency. And if there's any questions I can field during this presentation, post this presentation via email. If there's anything that you need, I'm here. So please feel free to interject as I go through this. I had built out a slide deck to prepare for this, but I think I would rather just speak to the board freely and then share my screen as for the product to show you, real life demonstration, how, what I'm saying is applicable to what I'm talking about, if that's okay.
Sure.
Awesome. I am got to grant access real quick. I'm having trouble sharing my screen. Do I need to get access from the host of the meeting to share my screen?
Let me see. Give me just a second.
You shouldn't need to, though. It's cool. There it is.
Yep, we've got it now.
You're muted, Micah.
There we go. Can you hear me?
There you go. Yep.
Awesome. So just to give everybody in this meeting, everyone that's present, a little bit of background on who we are, where we came from, how we got to where we are. So Urban SDK, I don't know if you're familiar with our name, but we were founded in 2018 out of Jacksonville, Florida, which is where we are housed, service-based, and built. As we went through in 2018 and noticed the different grants from the government coming down in relation to the Smart Cities initiative, what we did is we went to the North Florida TPO, who is our local planning office here, and we started asking them in regards to these Smart Cities grants, how it is applicable to the work that MPOs, TPOs, RTOs, departments of transportation. What they started to do is go down a list of priorities with us as to what you have to do, throughout the year to keep your designation, to go get federal grant money, to go get your funding for the next year. And what they listed off was their long-range transportation plan, their congestion management plan, their performance measures that they have to do every year, manual data collection and audit. And then we started to get into the discussion of what are the issues that MPOs have over the years. And they explained different things tied to each one of those initiatives, but really what they said is efficiency, transparency across all boards, and the townships that report to us, the different communities that we work with, the different county governments, manual data collection and audit, just being able to have everything under one platform, have all of your data under one silo, rather than having it on, 3 different external hard drives, a computer in the back, an Excel spreadsheet, a CSV file, but taking all this data that you're using as an organization and all the data that we're feeding to you, make it very usable, make it very meaningful, so that when it does come time to go after these federal grant initiatives, whether it is with the FTA or FHWA or whatever that may be, or it's just a checkbox that you have to mark at the end of the year for your congestion management plan or your long range transportation plan, that this data is audited, it's cleansed, it's housed in one area, it's visualized, and you have the federal performance measures associated with it, so that this data is applicable and can be used for these tasks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, each one of the buttons within our platform and explain why we built it. So that kind of relates to, we have never built anything in this platform that has not been derived from an initiative of an MPO. We are not planners. We are not civil engineers. Now, we do have a team of PhD data scientists that are civil engineering backgrounds, but on this side of the house, most of us have big business or public relations backgrounds. So we don't know what it's like to sit in your shoes. We don't know what you need as an organization to facilitate to these needs that I've just gone over. So everything that we've done has been derived from one of our MPO clients. So we have now partnered with 20 of the 27 MPOs in the state of Florida, 3 of the 5 Department of Transportation districts in the state of Florida. We're in 17 different states, 2 provinces in Canada, and we have over 3 dozen other MPO, TPO, RTO, and Department of Transportation clients outside of the state of Florida. So we're growing rapidly, and we're very excited about that, because the more that we grow, the more this becomes a network of MPOs. So we take the feedback from our MPOs based on where they're at geographically, what their population density is, what their budget is, what issues they face throughout the year to complete these tasks, and we continue to enhance the product. Every 2 weeks, we do product releases. So we update the product based on our clients' feedback, based on their needs. We release that, and all of our MPOs get that to keep that network feel. So these executive directors and these planners and these engineers that are working towards these tasks that we work with on a day-to-day basis, we continuously enhance the product to keep these MPOs ahead of the planning curve and to continue modernizing MPOs across the country. So just to start off on our demonstration, the first screen that you're going to see here is our workspace. So our workspace is essentially your data portfolio. It is your Google Drive of data. It is a place for you to integrate all of your open source data that you may be getting from ADOT. You might be doing local data collection. You might have historical data housed on hard drives in the back, and you want to upload it here to make sure that you have it all housed under one platform. And this can be data we have provided, data that the state has provided to you, or it could just be open source data that you're getting on your own. But this is your data portfolio to make sure that you're keeping transparency across each organization and each member as you go through these projects, these tasks, that it's here, it's audited, it's cleaned. You can come in, you can view that data. And you can simply view that by coming in, sifting through it by the name of the study or the data set that you're looking for, by safety studies, origin destination, speed studies, infrastructure studies, FARS crashes, so fatalities crashes, and you're not limited to that. So we try to be open source as possible, where we're not picky about format. As long as it's geospatial data and it is in GeoJSON, JSON, shapefile, we are not picky about it. You can upload it into our platform and house it here. We want to make this as easy to use as possible. The reason that we built out Workspace the way that we did, I know I'm echoing myself a little bit, but the reason that we built out this stage in the platform was because a lot of our MPO and Department of Transportation clients kept coming to us with complaints about having 10 different data silos, particularly KYTC, Chris Lambert there, and some of our members here at FDOT. They kept coming to us saying, we're just not organized. We don't have, our data's all over the place. We really don't even know what we have. This person's working on this project. We've got our GIS people working on this project. We've handed this over to our consultant. So now what we did is we designed a place for them to house all of that data, to consolidate it and create that level of transparency for the entire organization or the multiple organizations that will be working within the platform. What we have here is our studio, which is our GIS mapping tool. So if you're familiar with Esri or ArcGIS, which I'm sure most of you are more familiar with it than I am, that is our mapping tool that we've created, whether it's data sets that we're providing to you or it's data sets that you want to integrate that you already currently house at your agency. You can create really custom visuals. You can create very granular analysis, and there's a lot of shareability features in there to allow you to share the studies and the work that you're doing not just with each other internally or externally, but also with your community, being able to create custom studies and post them on your website. Let the people in your community that you serve know not just the hard work that you're doing, but show how it's affecting your community. I think it's very important. What we've noticed is MPOs a lot of time get forgotten about, and the work that you do is extremely meaningful. So being able to share that work with your community is something that we have tried to preface it and make sure it's at the top of our list. Here's our Insights tool. So Insights is a way to go in and see all those federal performance measures that we're going to be providing to you, along with multiple data sets, static and near real time, that we're going to be providing to you, that you can go in and view, get your federal performance measures, see exactly what's going on within your community. And then what we have here is our data hub. So for all of those one-off data sets, all of that census and demographic data that we provide to you, it's a way for you to go in, grab census data that you would typically have to go to census.gov as they release it, go through, parse that data, cleanse that data, make it meaningful to you. What we've done is we've created a relationship with census.gov where we actually go directly into their API. We pull out these different data sets as they update them throughout the years. We put them into the platform geographically, so you can go in and put in your location and grab whatever data set you need, whether that's to understand different demographic data within your community, or you're using it for model enrichment, your travel demand model, whatever that may be. That data is very easy to grab and use. You can have those data sets delivered within 15 to 30 minutes. So what I'll do to get this kicked off is I'll show you some sample data that I can pull for the entire group. What county county boundaries does the MPO fall in, or is it just one county that you guys fall under?
Yes, just Yavapai County.
I apologize if I spelled this wrong. Is it YAV?
YAVAPAI.
Yeah, that's the truth.
So what we can do is we can come in and we can query these different data sets, as you're going to see here on the side. So trips is our origin destination data set. Bridges is all of your bridge conditions within your community. We actually go into the National Bridge Inventory as these come out every single year. We grab those data sets for you, we upload them, and we associate the correct performance measure that a lot of state agencies are required to report on at the end of the year. Our origin destination data allows you to view what is going on within your community when it comes to where people are going to and from. What are popular points of interest? How are they getting there? What do those trip durations look like? What do, and then fatality analysis. Understanding from FAR's crash database, we go into their API, we pull that data out, we cleanse that data to allow you to understand trends within your community historically, and this year currently as they come out with this data, where these fatalities are piling up. So the goal of this is really to take a lot of the burden off of the MPO when it comes to parsing data, cleaning data, having to manually go get it. What we would like to do is provide these data sets to you, so when it comes time for your long-range transportation plan, one thing you're not doing is falling behind on federal deadlines because the data sets that you need are not there, and the consultant has to go out and manually do this data collection or go grab it from various sources, so the feds aren't pinging you. Also, so that you as an organization can stay organized, you'll be able to log in much beyond just doing your long-range transportation plan and understand these different performance measures and analytics that are really meaningful to your organization. So what I'll do for an example is we'll go in and we'll take a look at your bridge conditions. And what I'm about to show you is applicable to any data set that we're going to be providing to you. The way that I filter data, the way that I query it, it's, all of it is going to be built out to your MPO region, so that all of the townships that report to you, anybody that you see is fit to use the data can use the data. So everybody within your MPO boundary will have access to this data. So what I just did is I went and looked at all the bridges within Yavapai County. And now what we have is we have a custom visual of where all these bridges are at. And then we have metadata associated with each one of those. So now you can hover over one of these data points and say, okay, that's bridge ID 06711. The county is Yavapai. The owner is the state. The condition was good the year it was built, the year it was inspected. What we could do, just like we could do for our speed and reliability or congestion data or travel time reliability, come in here and filter this down by date range. So the data is parsed already. So we can go in, we can apply that's year 2021. And then we want to say, let's look at all county highway agency owned bridges. So we've got 176. And now what we can do is we can understand, okay, we know where our bridges are at now. We know it's associated, but we can come into a full report table and see the actual data that's going into the study that was just queried. as well as the full report table of all the federal performance measures that need to be associated with your bridge conditions. So we've got total bridges inspected, poor, fair, good, different pie charts to break that down, the ages of the bridge, and then the bridge maintenance, as well as the owners of the bridges. So let's say theoretically this was something that you wanted to pull for your next technical meeting, or if it was something that you wanted to use for justification for grant money, whatever that may be, and you wanted to either download this raw data or you wanted to share this study with somebody internally or externally, simply all you'd have to do is come here and click download, and you could download the raw data right here. You could take a picture of it to actually share on a presentation, or maybe a PowerPoint that you want to share with your coworkers. Or what we could do is we could save this. So we could come in here and we can put in, this is for demonstration purposes, but you could list this as whatever you would like. Click save, and this data is all going to be saved to that workspace, that basically Google Drive of data right when we logged into the platform. So say we wanted to share this study, if this was fatality analysis or this was crash analysis, and you've seen a lot of fatalities or you've seen a lot of crashes piling up on certain corridors within the Yavapai region, something you want to share with the general public, what you'd be able to do is come in and publish this report, toggle this on. You'd be able to click this public link and just share this study internally or externally, or you could embed this iframe right on your website. So you could actually take this iframe, put it right on your website or your social media page, whatever that may be, and share this data that you guys are not just working on, but share meaningful information to the community to either tell them to slow down on these roadways, be cautious of where you're at, to try and stay ahead of that curve. But what I can do is I will copy this link and I will share it in the chat with everyone. And what you'll be able to do is go in and click this link and see the exact study that I just queried. And this goes for any data set that I just provided. So any data set that you provide in this platform, you can click that link, you can go in, you can view the analysis, view the study, share that link, share it with your consultant. One thing that we've done based on a request from one of our clients here in Florida is we allow all consultants, if they're your preferred consultant for a general planning contract or something that you've hired them for corridor analysis, you can have them log into the platform so that you're no longer paying for data twice. So now you have data here, you're doing data collection on your own, you're getting data from the state. There's no reason you should be paying for it twice when you're hiring these consultants. You have the data here, it's been audited, it's been cleansed, it's been recognized. They can come in, use this data, use your platform so you can track the different steps that they're doing to keep timelines in order as they go through this analysis and continue to move on. What we could do next is say we wanted to get more granular with our study, whether this is a speed study, a travel time study, a crash study, a bridge study, as we just did. I can show you, we can just click our studio button and you can extract this data as well. So you can extract it, you could share it, you could pump it into models, you could plug it into your Esri or ArcGIS if you prefer. But by just simply clicking that studio feature, what you're able to do is carry all those different data layers that we just queried over. So we could layer in different data sets based on what you're trying to accomplish with this study. So speeds, travel times, crash data, historical traffic counts, anything that your state's provided to you, you can upload them right here as long as they're in CSV, GeoJSON, JSON, or shapefile format. We want to make this as easy to use as possible. And then once again, the shareability features are applicable here. You could save this study, you could share it, you could download the raw data, you can turn off and on these layers. If there's certain maps that ADOT requires you to use, whether that's FHWA maps, or certain maps that you just prefer to create analysis on, we can upload those for you to make sure that the mapping feature is there. So whatever backdrops you want, it's all very customizable. And as we go through the onboarding process, we'll make sure that your platform is customized to your needs. For the last section of the platform, we have our data hub. So what you're able to do is you're able to come in and you're able to choose any location in the country, whether it's a very small town in Arizona, or it's Yavapai, or you want to look at demographic data for surrounding boundaries to see how you compare. What you can do is you can just click your location. You can come in, you've got congressional districts, school districts, census blocks, zip codes, area codes, cities, counties, race ethnicities, disabilities, ages, median household incomes, travel time, and average speeds, where you can simply come in, select a data set, select the year that you want it for, select a file output. So once again, if you prefer your own mapping tools and you prefer GeoJSON as your file output, you click that, preview your data set. And what you have here is your table, which will show you all of your sample data that's going into the study, as well as your validation docs. So anything that we produce to you, whether it's real-time or static data, we have a validation doc behind it. We're never going to produce anything out of this platform that we don't feel comfortable. Something that we don't have a high confidence interval in, because the last thing we want to do is create a stigma that we're not producing good data. Especially when you're delivering data to engineers, planners, people that deal with data all the time, they tend to debunk bad data very quickly. So that's certainly not something that we want to do. But all you'd have to do beyond this point to receive this data set is come in here and click save. And your data set is being queued up right here, and you'll simply get an email when that's done. To touch on something that Lindsay has brought to our attention, we wanted to go over how we could identify congestion and travel times within the Central Yavapai community. So what I prepared is some sample data from a client that we've already modeled out, and this is very similar to what we would do for your agency. So Ozarks Transportation Committee is a client of ours, and we have modeled out all of their road classes 1 through 3 for speed and reliability, congestion, where they can simply come in, take a look at their roadways within their community and their MPO boundary, and be able to pull this data and translate this into many different, different analysis that they're trying to find. So they can come in and they can view their entire roadway. And what they're able to pull from this is not just the average speed on each roadway segment within their community. They can pull the travel times. They can see AM and PM peak hours for each day. And this data can go all the way back to 2021 if you're requesting it, or you could just have it from the beginning of this year and then everything moving forward. So all of our data that we're providing you is on a 4-day latency. So today's Thursday, you would be able to go in and see what happened on your roadway network on Monday. But being able to come in here and see the federal performance measures that are associated with this study, being able to filter down different days and facility types. So you can come in here, choose a road type that you just want to view the data for, instead of viewing it for your entire county boundary or your entire MPO boundary. You could simply select 2 roadways or 2 roadway segments to get this data on. But for demonstration purposes, what I'll do is I'll show you how you can simply drop this in. So you're going to get your travel times, your average speed, and then your congestion. So once again, all you would have to do is you'd come in, you can hover over these data points, different metadata. And then to get more granular, we could flip this over to our studio to see the different data layers that went into this study. And then we could come in here in our legend feature and very easily be able to see speed, reliability, average travel speed. And now we can see on all their major roadways, their most congested roadways, where are they seeing congestion and travel times drop. So we can actually hover over these data points and understand the roadway ID where they're seeing the most congestion for the time periods that we queued the data up for. And you can queue this data up. You can do this study within about, once you're trained on the platform, with 60 seconds if you're proficient in using the platform. But you're able to go in and filter down by road type, classification type, day and time to see the peak hours, and then also be able to flip this open and understand on your impactful roadways where you're seeing this congestion pile up at. That kind of concludes what I had to go over today. As for the platform, that was kind of the 30,000 foot overview, but I'd be happy to field questions if you guys have some off the top of your head.
Thanks, Micah.
I have a question. Micah, like this example right here, is that data, where's the data coming from that's providing this pretty recent, you said there's like a 4-day lag. Is this data that you guys contract to get, or is it just stuff that is already out there and it's just been analyzed? I'm just curious.
We have contracted through 3 different data providers. Something we learned early on is we were just going through one data provider at the time, and then we were having trouble in more rural areas. So what we did is we went and found 2 additional data partners where we bring in data from multiple data sources, as well as multiple mobility applications that we pull data from to give us higher densities of data, give us better penetration rates, even in really rural areas of the country. We go in, we bring that data in, we factor it up. Our modeling team takes it, matches the link IDs, and then produces it back to our clients.
Is it primarily based on cell phone applications, things like that?
It is. That is correct.
And so for instance, in this one, you had the major roadway system. Can this be used to go lower levels in the classification? I mean, in this example for Springfield, could it have looked at some of those other roads? I mean, that data is there, so I would think so.
Yes, you can. So they could go in and they would be able to filter that out. And if that's a request of the client, what we try to do is get ahead of that ahead of time. So if there's anything that you guys have special, if there's any roads that you guys have prioritized that we don't have listed in the proposal, you can go in and request those roadways. We'll add them to the data so that when we deliver it, those roadways are included as well. Typically, what we try to do is deliver off the shelf road classifications 1 through 3, but we can do 4 as well.
Thank you.
Boom, is there anything in this, or Micah, is there anything in this program? Is it gonna be public accessible? Anybody can get on it if they have the website, or are they gonna have to pay into this to be able to use it? And is there anything in there that maybe municipalities may not want the public to be into?
Yes, so that's a good question. The MPO will have full control over who can access this data. Every data set within the platform is shareable on your website, shareable through links, or you could download the raw data and share that. But as the MPO, you have the authority to decide on who can get into the platform and who cannot get into the platform.
And is there information that's in there that might not be applicable to some people, that you don't want them in there, or some organizations or agencies, or?
That is
If they're able to sign on, they're able to sign on to everything.
Yes, but you can give them different levels of access. So they could only be in a read-only access. You have analyst licenses, you have admin licenses. So you could give somebody, say, a consultant or another agency, that if you want them to come in and view studies, they can just come in and view them, but they can't edit any of the work that you're doing. They can't grab any of the data. They can't download it, but they have the ability to come in and view the data in the studies that you're creating.
And I have one more question for Norm. Is there any of this now that's implemented throughout Yavapai County that we wouldn't have to use this, where we can get the same information, or no?
Not without paying for it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. You were using something?
Yeah, we use Streetlight data.
You still have-
We had a contract with them. It's currently expired.
Okay.
And we're looking at what level we want to renew that if we want to go forward, based on some input about traffic, master traffic
Yeah.
studies for our city.
So I guess a couple of comments. CYMPO was looking at streetlight also. We were thinking of doing like a Northern Arizona joint package with other MPOs. Again, we would give access to the local agencies. So probably to have a follow-up conversation with where Prescott is and how this might compare to that.
Yeah, that's why some of my questions
Yeah.
are realistic.
And then maybe to a little bit of what John triggered in my mind, what we would get with this would be CYMPO would have 5 licenses, essentially, CYMPO being one of the 5. And then being that we have 5 local public agencies, what I basically did was took the top 4, don't mean to exclude Dewey Humboldt by no means, but just because it's on the smaller end, we went ahead and assumed them under the CYMPO part. And then that would allow us to give full license access to Prescott Valley, Prescott, Chino Valley, and then the Yavapai County. And if you want to bring up that slide again, showing the cost breakdown. So again, what they've quoted us is that $32,500 for an annual fee
For everybody.
for the entire annual package.
And then each community would pay.
Yeah.
Break
Yes.
down there, yes.
So that would be the breakdown. So CYMPO, including the Dewey Humboldt part, would pay the $16,770, Prescott $5,314, and so forth, based upon population. I would offer this note too in your consideration. This type of software and data generally takes place within our planning studies, which Lindsay referenced earlier, like our regional transportation plan, our safety plans, our active transportation plans. So in many ways, we end up paying this one way or the other. So I think part of your consideration is, and I'm not selling Urban SDK in particular, but it may be Streetlight, it may be something else. The consulting firm would end up billing us for whatever they end up using. So in one way or another, you could look at this, that this type of data is happening, whether CYMPO directly owns it or we end up paying for it through a consultant. The idea would be that if we were to have Urban SDK or Streetlight or something like that, that we would have this continual access. When it comes time to a transportation study, the ownership of this software and data would be taken into consideration that, and we'll use, since Matt's with us, AECom as an example. They did the last rural transportation plan. And again, rather than pay AECom to access some of this information, they would be able to have access to it if CYMPO owned it. So that would be one example. So not to step on Lindsay's toes here, but it's not necessarily, I know we listed as an action item, but it's really more of a discussion. What is your interest as a TAC? If you have additional questions, feel free to ask them today, express interest. And then because the vendor is here, I would probably say, you're more than welcome to follow up with Lindsay and specifically your interest, and you're willing to contribute fiscally your share if you are interested in it. So, Ian?
Yeah, I think I would have additional technical questions related to the level of data I could get, Micah, but it's not appropriate for here. But if I could send that over, and then the other question would be, if there was interest as a group and it went forward this way. I know that when you reach down into deeper levels of data, access to data, like for instance, you might have 3 roadway classifications, but in order to make it something that we might want lower than that. Would there be ability for us to see what that costs additionally and then maybe contribute in a different way? That's one of my question, would go that way.
Yeah,
But I'll just follow up with Lindsay.
sure. My initial reaction is I would see a problem.
I wouldn't think there would be an issue either.
Has this approach been to anybody else besides this group? No? So it hasn't gone to any of the towns or cities or anything like that? Okay.
Not locally, but in Arizona right now, Lake Havasu MPO is considering a licensed, but a much more scaled down version. Sun Corridor out of Casa Grande right now is contemplating the same exact package we are. And Yuma MPO. So there are several MPOs in the state, but nobody locally. And Dan has his hand raised.
So right now, we're getting, if I may, getting the information as we need it for whatever projects that are going on, opposed to, and there's some things I didn't see on there, which was, I'm sorry?
Probably more too. 'Cause
Oh,
it's
yes.
twice done.
Yeah, and so, are we able to get that? And then how long is the contract with this?
The contract's for a year.
1 year.
Okay, okay.
Dan, I see you got your hand up.
Yes, thanks, Chairman. My question is this proposal that we have countywide or CYMPO only?
It is countywide.
I certainly think from county perspective, I would want to talk with my staff as to the interest. As touched on earlier, we've looked into the possibility of being a partner on Streetlight in the past, and the county decided at that time that we didn't have much interest in it, but perhaps that's changed. And I will say that the county probably is going to follow suit with what a lot of our urban agencies are feeling with regards to benefit. If there's benefit in the direct CYMPO area and there's some consensus in regards to that, the county is more likely to be supportive of this moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you for that feedback.
Any questions? Lindsay, where do we go from here? This is a proposal. We're going to take questions. I see Ian has some from the city. Maybe Dan can get back to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I welcome any of your feedback. If any questions that I can field through to Micah, please send it my way.
So this isn't a budgeted item. It's something you pull out of just the budget.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, members of the TAC, so this, if we wanted to move forward, if you all express a general interest in this and you're willing to pay your 50% of it, if you remember in the last meeting, we had a to be determined pot of money. Allison, I think it was 114,000. So this would come out of that 114. We have a few other items somewhat earmarked for it. But we would be able to remove the 50% for this out of that item. So we do have the monies for it at this point.
May I ask one more question?
Go ahead.
What's the limitation on information that we can get? Or is there, I mean, what's their limitation? Like, I'd like to see it. I know I don't have any voting thing right here, but I'd like to see a list of what this does and compared to like a transportation study. Or, you know, like some of the things we deal with, animal problems on the highway and so on and so forth, ingress, egress. And, the first thing that comes to my mind up here is signal timing, which it seems to be everybody's issue, but I mean, I don't know how you're gonna control that, but I would like to see a list of those things that you can control through this.
And I feel like, John, there's a PowerPoint, I know Micah didn't use it today, but he did share it, that Lindsay would be happy to share with you and the TAC members. I believe when I look at it, and Micah, I might be wrong, but there was one of the PowerPoints that had like 12 main elements that this does, or it was a pretty decent list of, again, the traffic timing, traffic counts and so forth, things like that.
I will, I'm actually going to go ahead and share this with all of you in the message app. So if you want to download this, if you want to take a look at it, please feel free. I know Lindsay has a copy of it as well.
And I don't mean to speak for you, Micah, but I assume that you would be available to Ian and the city of Prescott down in the county and anyone else that might want a follow-up specific presentation. Is that fair?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do so. I really appreciate your time. And if I may make one last statement, I know we compete with Streetlight a lot. I think the difference when you're looking at Streetlight data versus going our route is Streetlight is a data provider. That is correct. They do provide a lot of different traffic data. They provide different analytics on data, and they have a good product. But their product is very applicable to any B2B market, any, MPO or any city that just wants to buy the data that they provide. The level of service that we provide when it comes to this being built out for MPOs, this product is built solely for MPOs, TPOs, RTOs, and departments of transportation to not just facilitate to providing large data, but to provide, an efficiency tool, a stand-up tool when you hire a new staff member, being able to tell them where their data is at and where it's located, being able to keep yourself organized as you go through these different initiatives throughout the year. We've really honed in on the needs of these MPOs. We really do pride ourselves on that. So that's something that I always try to, differ when we talk about Streetlight data versus Urban SDK data. And I can tell you a massive difference is if you call Urban SDK 8 to 5, you're going to have a dedicated customer success rep that's dedicated to your account. They're going to pick up the phone and they're going to know exactly what's going on with your account. They're going to assist you with it. They're going to help you with other task orders as they come on throughout the year. So if you have something that you would like assistance with modeling, or you want volumes, or you want to go buy another data set, or you want to implement more roadways within your data, you're going to have somebody pick up the phone 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. That's going to walk you through that, knows exactly what's going on with your account. There's no automated response at Urban SDK. So that's something that I always want to throw out there and let you know. We really take pride in that. And we always try to make sure, as we go through this process, we know data, especially mobility data, it can be fuzzy math, it's statistics, and we understand that. So our job is to confirm that we're giving you good data and we're giving you a good level of service. We're giving you a platform that you can all use and share, keep transparency, not just within one agency and use it for one project, but for a long-term solution for an entire community, for all of your agencies to be able to log in and know exactly what's going on. So that's my last caveat, but thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the rest of the technical committee. I really, really appreciate you guys having me here and allowing me to present, taking the time out of your day to listen to me. I really, really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Where do we go from here? We'll get some questions answered and then worry whether or not.
Yeah, we'll circle back for the June TAC meeting, do follow up and kind of get us.
Awesome.
Anything further, Lindsay?
So do we get the contact information through you,
Yeah,
or the PowerPoint through you?
absolutely. I'll send that out and then some questions already.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks, Micah.
I think
Yep,
we're done.
thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and drop. I have to run to another meeting. But once again, thank you all so much. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you for the presentation, Mike.
Thank you.
Item number 10 today is review, discussion, and possible action to recommend approval of the SR 89A on-ramps alternative selections report. Lindsay, you decided to-
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Matt Bondi is joining me on this item as well. So in summer of 2021, you might remember that CYMPO identified about $75,000 and the alternative selection report for the 89A eastbound on-ramps, the project began. So the purpose was to evaluate the eastbound on-ramp toward Prescott Valley off of SR 89. This was identified as a priority project in the Regional Transportation Plan 2045. CYMPO is seeking funding for construction of the selected alternative through state funding from RTAC and through congressionally directed spending funding provided by Senators Sinema and Kelly through their offices and funds that they had identified for competitive application. So to discuss this, I will introduce Matt Bondi with AECom.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. So again, my name is Matt Bondi. I am the consultant project manager with AECom, who was the lead consultant for CYMPO for the development or the preparation of the SR 89A on-ramps alternative selection report. So kind of as Lindsay had kind of discussed there, the development of the report, and I think some of you have been involved in the process there to date. Where we are at today is we have just recently submitted to the TAC for review. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, so around 4/21, the date there, we have submitted the draft alternative selection report for the project. We have that out for TAC review, so we are looking for any input, any type of comment or anything like that as the TAC is reviewing it here. Lindsay and Vinny just kind of asked me today to just kind of go over some of the highlights of the report, and we can go over what the overall recommendation from the report is as well. And I'm just going to kind of verbally discuss it there, and then if any questions come up as we discuss it here or as you've been reviewing the report, we can discuss any of those now as well. So again, this is the purpose of the project was looking at the SR 89 to SR 89A, looking at alternatives for potential improvements to that ramp. So the overall kind of project limits ended up, being from SR 89 from SR 89 to essentially Granite Creek Bridge along SR 89A. So we looked at that existing on-ramp, the eastbound frontage road within there, and the eastbound main line. If you look at, as you review the report, essentially the draft report is documenting the overall alternative selection process for this study. We took a look at existing and future conditions. We did some traffic analysis, an environmental overview. Then we also looked at development and overall evaluation of alternatives. We coordinated this throughout the process with the TAC and all the stakeholders involved there. Through the alternatives process, we came up with and we evaluated 6 build alternatives along with a no build alternative. We now created evaluation criteria with the TAC. We evaluated each of the alternatives and scored the projects accordingly with input from the TAC as well. And in the end, using that evaluation criteria, we scored each of the alternatives and, looking at that, seeing which alternatives scored the highest to be then considered for the recommended alternative. I guess I'll getting kind of the end of it there. The recommendation from this draft report is to move forward with our alternative 2. And if everyone remembers, or just to kind of to let everyone know what that alternative 2 is, if you weren't part of the process here. So alternative 2 would be the construction of a 2-lane on-ramp for SR 89A. So there'd be 2 additional on-ramp lanes entering SR 89A eastbound. This alternative would also realign the existing 2 lanes, eastbound SR 89A. It would realign them towards the median, which would then be compatible for the future or an ultimate 3-lane typical section along SR 89A. So essentially, the 2 new lanes from the ramp would merge onto SR 89A. We would then have 4 lanes after the ramp, which would then drop 1 as we approached prior to Larry Caldwell Drive, 3 lanes under Larry Caldwell Drive, and then we would drop down to the existing 2-lane section prior to the Granite Creek Bridge, where we would then just match in with existing. So that is the recommendation from the draft report. Within there is all the evaluation criteria and the scoring. I would note that as you look at the scoring, this alternative 2 ranked very high, along with what would be our alternative 1, which essentially was a 2-lane on-ramp, which tapered down to 1 prior to entering the main line. We would then have 3 lanes east of that ramp merging, and then we would drop that 2nd lane, or we would drop that 3rd lane prior to Larry Caldwell Drive. In the end, the basis of selection of alternative 2 over alternative 1 was based on the future compatibility with that 3rd lane. It was also based on this option gives the largest access capacity benefit for within all the alternatives there, and this option also did receive the highest score for agency support or concurrence there. Alternative 2 does have if you look at the associated cost with it, alternative 2, it does have a larger cost than alternative 1, but for those reasons that I discussed before, that is the basis of the selection for alternative 2. The draft report then takes that recommended alternative. It provides development of 15% design plans, so plans, typical sections, profile for the ramp that is included in the report, along with those costs associated with this preferred or recommended alternative as well. So just kind of briefly, overall, that's if you're as you review the report or as you've looked at the report, that is kind of the overall summary of what the draft entails to date. I guess so. With that, I'd open it up to the group. I don't know if there's any questions or anything else. Lindsay, you want to add, or Vinny, you want to add there?
Hey, thanks, Matt.
I would just add, Matt, I'm a bad director. I don't have the actual plan in front of me. So number 2, Matt, that was the 5.5 million. Is that correct?
Correct. So alternative 2, which is our preferred alternative, the planning level total project cost estimate came out to approximately 5.4 million.
Thank you very much. So just a point of reference for the group. I know you're just now receiving it, and we are to the final draft, but Matt kind of gave us a heads up. So that's the number that I've been using, as Lindsay alluded to, as we put out the congressional directed spending through Senator Kelly, Senator Sinema's office. We used a $5.5 million request, and then the same thing in that RTAC request. In the original, we had it was a $2 million request, and then later we ended up revising it when Kevin gave some of those updates to, again, that full amount, 5.5 million. So in case anyone was wondering, that's really where it was coming from. I know the planning process was playing out, but I needed to move quickly for funding for it. So I just wanted to add that note to it.
So let's get Dan. Dan, go ahead.
Vinny, so sorry, am I correct that you said that the 5.5 was that in the 50 million?
It's partially in there, Dan.
Okay. That's what I thought.
The $50 million request that Senator Van's still kind of pushing through, we asked for 2 million towards this project.
That's what I remember. I just wanted to clarify that.
Sure.
if the 50 million gets pushed still, we may come up short on it. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct. And what I've been trying to do with that in mind is, and this was previous to Anthony's appointment as the district administrator, was trying to have those conversations with ADOT saying, if we are able to provide this $2 million, what is ADOT's situation to meet us and be able to fulfill this project? So those were discussions happening. So if that's the case, those would still need to happen. Keeping in mind that there are other alternatives to this, that again, 5.5 is the, I don't want to say worst case scenario, but I guess highest dollar scenario and the preferred scenario that we are working towards.
Okay, thank you, Vinny. I appreciate it.
All right, Vinny, tell me, it was 4.4 million is what we felt like we could work with. What was the other 2 million? 2 million was to the FEMA.
So the RTAC one that you're asking, so of that $50 million statewide request, CYMPO was asking just for a little under 4 million. 2 million was going towards the 89A project. 488,000 was going towards the 69-169 roundabout to add some contingency money. And then the third project is the Sundog connector. There was $1.4 million for that project, which was going to go towards the design and construction is what we called it. I know the executive board got stuck through Mayor Good for a little bit, that maybe rather than use the federal funds for the Sundog DCR, that we would use these state funds to not start a 10-year construction clock. So if you remember, there was several meetings where that discussion was taking place. So at this point, we may still get the monies for the Sundog connector if that goes through.
When would it go through
the state legislature. So that's what Kevin was talking about. They have the deadline of July the 1st. They could pass the budget anytime now. They're having those negotiations. And once the budget gets to the governor's desk, we'll see what projects make the list, whether it's the entire CYMPO request or it's individual projects. It could be either one at this point.
This is an action option. Do we have any other discussion by the TAC? I hope everyone's had time to return comment. I know we've spent some time on this. I like the alternative personally, so I think what the action item is to recommend present it to the executive board for approval. We still have a couple weeks left to send them with comments, but I think it's a well-done report. Any other discussion? John, I think you had something earlier.
Well, I did. I was gonna hold off and ask Lindsay, but I'll go ahead and ask it now. I remember a while back, it might have been a year and a half, 2 years ago, ADOT had at one point in time had planned on putting, it's almost like a left turn slip lane, but it was signalized. And it's kind of like what Phoenix put in Phoenix and under the overpasses off of, I think, the 51, where they had the lane actually had a left turn area. They stopped and they were already turning rather than come up, stop under the overpass and then make them, because you got a truck issue there too. And I thought that was going to be included in this. And they were just talking about the lanes would be at an angle like this, but they would not go out in, past where the signal's at. And so when they got the green light to go, you got 2 lanes turning left, but they're already, rather than have a truck on the outside lane, or now then would be inside lane, and going into your outside lane to come over, they would already have the radius there to turn.
I don't think there was enough room underneath the underpass.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I don't think there was enough room under the underpass.
Okay.
Ned, do you want to address that real quick?
Yeah.
6 alternatives you evaluated?
Yeah, I'd agree with that there. That wasn't included as part of one of the 6 alternatives, but the space underneath the underpass would be an issue there. We did, though, run, as we looked at each one of these alternatives, we looked at truck turning needs for each of the alternatives. And, I would say our alternative 2 does meet all requirements for, for those trucks needing to turn into the lanes and, being able to approach the ramp, the way it's set up in there, and the right as you enter into, as you make that left turn and you enter into that frontage road or ramp lane, that far right lane is also an option lane as well. So any truck turning from that outside lane, you still has that opportunity to enter the ramp or to continue on to the frontage road there. So it's the turning radiuses and the truck movements were considered as we looked at each of these alternatives, and they operationally work for our preferred alternative.
Okay, so that's been out, that's not a part of it.
Any motion from the TAC?
Norm, was there going to be, were there any substantial comments that needed to be made that would, I didn't submit anything substantial that would need to be changed. So.
I don't think so. That's why I made the comment. I guess we could publicly
okay.
send something to the board, but if we vote on the TAC, it's just recommend approval to the executive board at their next meeting.
Then I will make a motion to recommend approval of the SR 89 to SR 89A on-ramp alternative selection report.
I will second.
Very good. Been moving second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 11. Is review and discussion of draft scope of work for SR 69 urbanized corridor master plan. Now, we've touched upon this in our MTIP, but I know we wanted to move forward with the generating the scope of work. Lindsay's listed again, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And we're about to put something on the screen for you to consider. We also sent this out as part of the agenda packet, the draft scope of work for SR 69 master corridor plan. You'll see that on the document that Allison is pulling up now that you've got some highlighted portions already. This is an update to what you received in the agenda packet. And so this is a result of some brainstorming that the team did together this week. So we'd like to talk about this as well. This was the draft scope was developed based on my research of comparable community plans, which is something that you recommended that I do. It was based on your input as a TAC, and it was based on the input by the EMAC subcommittee that John Pratt here is a part of. As I mentioned, I highlighted the updates that I've made since the agenda was sent out. And that does include the estimated timeline that I included at the very bottom. I will continue to seek feedback from you and other stakeholders. And the goal is to have a final scope and the solicitation by the next TAC meeting. And so here you'll see a timeline that helps us determine what type of solicitation that will be. So Allison, Benny, and I, with the support of Myrna and Dr. Palmer at ADOT, will determine what type of solicitation this needs to be. And so we have a very tight turnaround to get this out. And so we're starting as early as possible to sort of beat that bureaucratic process that comes with this. So this is our estimated timeline. If you'll scroll up back to the highlighted portion where I've added some in the draft scope, I just wanted you to consider this. Item E is a new one where I've moved one transit item under it, but we as a group decided that we wanted to expand it a little bit, especially because of some conversations that we're having about some $5307. And we're wondering if for now it's in the scope, analyze corridors for potential bus stops and other facilities such as park and rides. We thought that was valuable to add in there. You'll see letter F, freight. As SR 69 is a national freight corridor, we wanted to also consider what part of the scope can address that. And then we have expanded some points in public involvement that we'd like to see. Public involvement for Sundog corridor is a lot more robust. It was a quarter of the entire project. This is a little less because it's not as high profile as Sundog corridor could be. So we've included what we think should go under public involvement. And so, like I mentioned, I continue to seek feedback. I'd like to provide a final scope to you for the next TAC meeting, but I do welcome your feedback or your questions or any changes you'd like to see.
Go ahead. Can this be sent out with your updates?
Absolutely.
So we can then comment on the full scope.
I guess with that, my first comment, Lindsay, you said you've got a really quick timeline. Why are we rushing this? It's next budgeted next year, right? And these studies take 18 months. I didn't recall looking at the work. But why the type timeline on this?
Well, we'd like this to run sort of concurrently with Sundog Corridor. We'd like the decision makers to sort of have both in hand. And we anticipate this actually being more of a 12-month project, this study. And so because that is already kicked off, we sort of anticipated those coming up at the same time for your review. Anything to add to that, Benny?
Yeah, I guess maybe the small clarification, I don't know if anyway, when you say next year being July 1st would be our next year, our next fiscal year would be the funding program for it. But to Lindsay's point, our thinking so far, and I will say this, staff's open to be more flexible with the timeline. We don't have to be as aggressive. I will say my thinking up to this point is exactly what Lindsay said. I think with so much debate about the Sundog connector, clearly one of the major feedbacks that we've received has been, don't look at Sundog connector, look at 69. And I know a number of Yavapai Hills residents have asked us to do more activity on 69. So again, to Lindsay's point, our hope is that we'll have the results from the Sundog DCR. We'll have the results from this master corridor plan and basically have a menu of options for the decision makers to say, all right, now that you have both information, what regionally do we really want to support? With the timeline as it is, they are literally within about a month being finished of each other. But Norm, to your point, that's the only reason right now to push it along. But we're within a month that we also put in room that we know, as Lindsay alluded to, the bureaucracy, it's going to get caught up somewhere and we're going to get some delays. So that's kind of where we're at this point.
Well, I recall when the Sundog connector, speaking of bureaucracy, we wanted ADOT to approve it in the procurement. That takes a little while, doesn't it? Even the scope of work, didn't we change the scope of work on Sundog connector quite a bit? In fact, we kind of retooled the whole thing, didn't we? About half of it. Yeah. I appreciate moving fast. I'm usually advocating for that, but I really like ADOT to weigh in on what this corridor needs to look like. It's going to have federal funding. If freight's just a simple term, I just think we've got more work to do before we get the scope right. The timeline is something I see some concurrent look at them both. I can see the Sundog connector, but we didn't. Well, it wasn't our fault, but ADOT really wanted a bunch of different stuff in the Sundog connector. But we do want to capture federal funding, maybe if that's a $30 million price tag. I understand.
Yeah, and maybe that last point too, Norm, that again too is we're trying to get a number of things kind of in that position, I don't want to say shovel ready, but lined up for these grants. So, the hope of this study, it's going to break it down into different segments. If we end up with 16 different segments along 69, prioritizing each of the segments and then lining it up for potential federal funding, we want to hopefully get in line as soon as possible. To your point, absolutely, we want to get it right. Lindsay's going to be working with the people she said at ADOT to make sure they have their 2 cents in at this point. So we have a tentative timeline, but I have no problem at some point if we need to slow it down by a month or 2. But that's where we're at this point.
And usually chime in about, we've done well with having the consultant selected, help get us ready to put in for a grant. You think that'd be something you want to put in this scope of work, since it appears there's lots of funding in the horizon? They seem to do better at the grant submission and having the resources.
Yeah, I think that it'd be wise to keep things moving forward, because especially funding at the federal level, it seems to be constantly changing right now, and there's big dollars flowing in, and I hate to miss out on something if we think we can help position ADOT for landing some money on this corridor. We all recognize that there are needs on 69. So I'm a big fan of moving this forward in as timely a fashion as possible. my personal opinion is we, keep this thing moving forward and have Lindsay continue to peck away at the scope. And if we want to talk about it in June, great, we can review what she's got at that point. And if we want to tap the brakes just a little bit, if everybody's not comfortable or in line, I certainly want to see ADOT fully on board with whatever the scope comes in at, because it's their facility. And with Anthony in his new role there at the Northwest office, and Andy representing the TAC at this point, I certainly want all them on the same page as well. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Dan. Something, I know Lindsay asked me a week or two ago, or some query came from state or somewhere about freight corridors. And I mentioned we've always, as a member agencies, have always mentioned that the section between the Maverick and the 169, it doesn't really have an alternative access. And I know in the last 60 days, we've had a couple fatalities there that shuts down the whole corridor, and basically New Humboldt's the only one not affected, but for access. But I guess you got a lot of people coming home.
Yeah,
So
they weren't happy about that.
So I
I
know we're
was
looking
stuck
at,
in that first one.
Yep.
It was really bad. I mean,
yeah, we've
tragic,
got firsthand
obviously.
knowledge. So I don't know if that's something we want to put into the scope, that maybe that one shows a little, obviously we talk about different segments, but or that's stating the obvious, but it's something that I'd like to see out of the corridors. And I like the fact I saw it in the back.
You mean to use it as a PowerPoint?
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
High priority segments, that's just what we've been working on for quite a while with that high priority segment there. So just a comment.
We're blocking the roadblock right there.
Say so far what Lindsay and I have, probably I would classify it under that resiliency title right now. And we're happy to expand it, but we picked that term because that's kind of the new buzzword for some grant funding, federally speaking. But again, what happens in the situation where the highway gets shut down? How resilient are we as a transportation network to respond to that? What are the alternatives that we have and might consider? So with Norm's comment, I would say we develop that a little bit further.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Well, it sounds like Miss Lindsay has some work to do, which is
Just a little bit.
Speech board of month.
I grew up as a farmer, so I
There
like
you
work.
go.
Any other comments from the TAC? Well, this is a discussion item, and I'm sure Vince and Allison are looking at putting it on the June meeting, which will be coming up June 8th. So if there's no more comments on item 11, we can move on to item number 12, which is the federal and state updates. I know some of our meeting attendees today, item number A would be local public agency LPA update. Mark Heine, I see you've been in attendance. Thanks for staying with us. What do you got for us today?
Good afternoon. TAC members of CYMPO, appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Just not a lot of information today, but did want to give you a reminder of the local public agency project lifecycle training that will occur next Wednesday, May 11th at 8 a.m. About a half-day training, module 1, planning projects, project initiation, scope, schedule, budget. Again, that kicks off the new series of Fed aid training for how to navigate through, I guess, the full life cycle of the federal aid process. Don't want to say too much about that, but anyway, you all are invited to attend that. I also want to share with you a memorandum that was sent on April 29th from our traffic safety section with regards to access to the Arizona Crash Data System, ACES, Saroja. I probably would stumble over pronouncing her last name, but she sent a memorandum out. I forwarded it along to CYMPO to make sure all TAC member agencies can receive this and have information on how to pull crash data from the ADOT crash data system. anyway, that memorandum went out again on April 29th. I think you all received that, Vinny. Last but not least, there is a memorandum that went out from our roadway design section back in March 24th with regard to updating design standards for revised plastic pipe selection guidelines. Nothing too earth-shattering there. In June, we will have a Everyday Counts Fed Aid project delivery quarterly meeting. And if there's any suggested topics, comments, or items that's working or not working, I know you all don't have a lot of projects there going with Fed Aid funding in your region right now, but just want to give you all that opportunity to address anything at the Everyday Count stakeholder meeting or have a topic moving forward with Fed Aid delivery. Right now, we're looking at having our traffic safety section or TSMO present smart work zones, and we'd like to maybe consider how that can benefit local agencies. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Mark, I wanted can you tell us what the status is of HSIP applications? I didn't have a follow-up today. I was maybe Vinny or someone. We're ready, green light, finished our application. Where are we at?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I'll jump in there. Mike Blankenship has submitted the draft applications to ADOT for their review, for the safety department to review them. They're going to provide the feedback. He'll come back to the TAC meeting. I'll let you all know the feedback that they've provided. He'll probably do it in email prior to the TAC meeting, but in the TAC meeting, he'll say, this is what ADOT has reviewed. Here's their recommended edits. See if you agree or disagree. And then basically CYMPO's part at that point is done. Mike will clean up the applications based on your guidance, and then he will complete it, turn it over to you essentially for your signature and submittal to ADOT. So that's what we're at.
And the deadline for that's when, Mark? It was August, wasn't it? For the HSIP applications?
You're muted, Mark.
I don't have that information right in front of me right now, but I believe so. There is a process for the selection. This is for FY, I believe, 25 and 26.
Correct.
So we'll make sure you all have that information. I'm sure you have that as well, Benny.
Yeah, and I have it too. I'll find it, but it's this is the draft deadline in May, June, July. Yeah, I thought it was July or August is the final submittal. I'll find it.
But maybe the June meeting we can bring it.
Yes.
Good. Good.
I recall July or August 1st is what I recall. Everybody.
Thank you, Dan. That sounds about
Yeah.
right. I would say August 1st is the deadline for the final, for you as an agency to submit the application. So clearly we'll have it to you finalized before that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That is correct. August 1st, and again, it's June 30th for the consolidated comments sent to the applicants.
Thank you, Mark. Moving on, if you're done, Mark, we got the ADOT Northwest District Office report from Andy. There you are.
Yes, there I'm on.
What do you got for us today?
All right, just a few updates. One big one, the 2023 to 2027 tentative 5-year construction program is out on our website for comments. So that's under the multimodal planning division under transportation programming. And there's multiple ways of making comments in there on that website, different links and on how to do that. But there will be a public hearing on May 20th for that. And then the board takes action, I believe, on their June meeting on the finalization of that and approval of that program. As far as projects in construction right now, we have our maintenance group is actually doing a microsurface on SR 89 on the spars down from Will Hoyt up to basically Ponderosa Road. That will hopefully be finished next week. Our I-17 Anthem Way to McGuireville Rest Area Broadband Project, the contractor is working basically up on from 169 North right now towards Camp Verde on that project. That is daytime work out there. And then on the 69 Big Bug to Poland Junction, the pavement preservation, ARA-CFC replacement, and a spot repair. We had our partnering in pre-con on the 27th. Look for that to start work probably mid-June or so, and that will be night work. And then our State Route 89 from our 89A, actually, Glassford Hill Road to Coyote Springs Road, ARA-CFC replacement, spot repair. We are scheduling the partnering and pre-con for that, but that's also the same contract as Asphalt Paving and Supply that's doing the 69 project. And that will probably start as well sometime in mid-June or so, night work as well. And then for projects in design, the I-17 Sunset Point Rest Area Rehab Project, bids opened on that one. Believe it was last week or so. And right now they came in at 71% over department estimates. So waiting to hear from contracts and specs on that one, on what's gonna be proposed at the for the transportation board to act on that one. Our 89A from 89 to Glassford Hill Road, the ARA-CFC replacement and spot repair. That one, the bids open on that one on May 20th. And our 69 Truewood to Stone Ridge, second quarter fiscal year 23 for advertisement on that. 69 from Prescott Lakes Parkway to Frontier Village, the widening, that's also a second quarter. Still listed at fiscal year 23 for bid advertisement. Then I-17, at 169 TI, the deck replacement, that's also second quarter fiscal year 23 advertisement. And finally, 89, State Route 89 from milepost 339 to 363. Basically, let's call that Bramble Drive up in Paulden all the way up to Ash Fork. Centerline Rumble Strip project. Right now scheduled for fiscal year 23 advertisement. Don't know the quarter yet on that one. And that's what I have.
And so my simple comment, we've been waiting on the 69 project, but that looks like that's going to advertise and that the plans are 100% from Prescott Lakes Parkway to Gap Peak connector. Where's that?
Yes.
plan? Yes.
Yeah, that was still scheduled as a second quarter fiscal year 23, but and I think if I remember right from the last schedule I saw from the consultant, I think that was like a September advertisement right now.
And that last I heard too, I mean, it's pretty much done design wise. The hang up we had locally was some discussions with the city of Prescott about a multi-use path and special lighting. I appreciate Ian kind of working with decision makers, mayor, council, and others. Long story short, city of Prescott decided to, and this had come up years ago, I don't even know where it came up, but there was some interest in having a multi-use path along the corridor and lighting associated with it. But that interest is no longer with the city of Prescott. Again, if they wanted to do that, it would be their ownership, liability, and responsibility after construction. So that's what removed the interest for the city of Prescott. We may have funds to construct it, but I think, Ian, it was fair to say that the concern was liability and maintenance.
Ongoing maintenance and
So-
taking it back.
So we got.
Well, and then the other thing was lack of connectivity
Yeah.
across
there's a
the
gap
tribal
there.
lands. There's a gap there. If we had
Half a mile gap.
connectivity, then it would make more sense, but we've got a half-mile gap there that we can't really close, and so.
Back to nowhere, yep.
And to
Right,
that,
path to nowhere, why maintain a path in perpetuity that really doesn't go anywhere?
so for what it's worth to Prescott and us as a region, we will have the design of it that'll be on the shelf if that ever wanted to be pursued. So that's been, if you will, paid for by the region. So we do have it. So at least there's that option, but the bid will go out without that part to it. But I do know that probably hung us up just for a month or two.
Well, and we also were dealing with some property owners as well, Coca-Cola plant and others about their access. So we're finalizing those revisions as well.
Anything else, Andy? Thank you.
That's all I have.
I did appreciate your update last week. I forwarded on to our media people about the actually where it affects Prescott Valley and 89.8 that ACFC. So we'll be able to assist ADOT when people call and says, what are they doing? They typically call the local agency too, and that's okay. We can tell them what's going on. But I guess I hope that your media outlets there at ADOT will get that out ahead of time. And I think that'll save a lot of phone calls and get our residents and customers out there aware of that project.
Yes, we will, before that goes to construction, absolutely. Our media government relations will put out the notices and the web page and everything else for that project as well.
Thank you. Nothing else. We'll go on to C, which is the multimodal planning, which is Myrna. She's been very patient. I see you've been attending. Myrna.
Oh,
you're up.
hi, good afternoon. Actually, today I would like to surrender my time to Sonia Kadek Jawar, who is going to conduct a presentation for you, and Lucas Murray. Sonia, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Again, I appreciate Myrna for allocating her time to both of our groups, HPMS Analytics Group and Traffic Data Monitoring Group, to provide about 10-minute update when it comes to data coordination. Lucas, you can, if you would please turn to the following slide. Thank you very much. Traffic information in a comprehensive count program usually is compiled from all available sources statewide. State DOTs such as ADOT, MPOs, COGS, towns, cities, counties alike. State covers all the roads, not just state-owned and maintained ones. So data provided by and gathered from LPAs such as yourself, cities, counties alike, gets included in the count cycle. So that is where this partnering mindset and everyone starts focusing on partnering. What does ADOT do in its supporting role, and what do COG and MPOs, what their role is? Among other roles, ADOT has a role for training, technical assistance, providing traffic-related updates, such as the one we're providing right now at TAC meetings, contract language assistance. Sometimes even we get requests to lend equipment for a certain amount of time to local public agencies because they are in need to have some. In return, COG and MPO partners such as yourself continue to stay engaged and proactive. And this is where I stop and I thank CYMPO for continuing to stay engaged for continuation of data collection and efforts, great efforts put forward, and sharing data via MS2. Many of times we get notified that data is collected somewhere at a certain LPO, but when we log into the MS2 system, data is not shared. So if you know of any local public agency that you know are collecting, continue that encouragement from our side. Let them know to go ahead and share that via MS2 portals and upload the data to MS2 portals. Going forward, we have created just recently a new email account called aztrafficdata@azdot.gov. And it is specifically for local public agencies to send the requests and traffic related needs to that inbox. When it comes to data collection, I do want to just remind data collection does not have to happen at the end of the calendar year or just when we send the call for counts communication out to local public agency. Data collection can and should be encouraged. Data collection throughout the year or as soon as your annual counts are finalized, so that these efforts really look and feel like they are a habit rather than a chore. Next slide, Lucas, please. Thank you. Thank you. If you do have your traffic count programs for 2022 collection year, please share those schedules with us. Please utilize the same email inbox, aztrafficdata@azdot.gov. Continue to count traffic and share data. Here I am echoing myself. But please utilize, and Lucas, if you would click one more time, please utilize what we call HPMS traffic status map to your benefit. And you can utilize that to monitor and identify where traffic count data is missing for HPMS reporting. Next slide, please. Last but not the least, I just want to point out and encourage ADOT Data Analytics website, which can take you to traffic monitoring website. There you can find a myriad of informative materials and documents, such as how to use MS2. You will be able to find story maps on, I mentioned data loading. You can find a story map how to load the data to MS2. You can find story maps on how to create reports out of the MS2, and many other informative materials. And last but not the least, in our final call for counts email that went out, and pardon me, I don't exactly remember, earlier this year or late last calendar year, we've encouraged the use of Experience Builder app. And we have asked for local public agencies to give us an update on who the best point of contact is for your agency when it comes to traffic count efforts. But also you are able to attach your traffic count programs within that app itself. With that said, I'd like to turn it over to Lucas to cover the rest of the presentation, and I thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Sonia, and thank you everyone for your time today. I'm Lucas Murray. I'm the HPMS analyst with ADOT, and I'm going to switch gears to talk about certified public mileage, which is the sum total mileage for all the public roads in the state that meet the definitions that you see here on this slide. The reason why we wanted to bring up this topic is because it is a very important metric that does influence federal funding. So it's something that we want to make sure that we're accurately calculating for the state each year. We have some good news that in the HPMS report that will be submitted here in a couple months, we're actually going to be seeing an increase of our CPM between 2020 and 2021, a total of 7,500 miles. So that's excellent news. And as you can see from this graph here, while there were a few counties out there that did see a decrease in their CPM, the overall majority saw a pretty good size increase in their CPM, including Yavapai County. This is not due to new roads being built or anything like that. This is because our Arnold data set, this is the GIS network of roads for the state, has gotten more and more accurate. And it's more accurate from feedback that we've received from agencies like yours. The more accurate our data set, the more accurately we can calculate the CPM, which can lead to instances such as this, where we're seeing increases in CPM. And that's why we love your input. We would really love for you to let us know about any kind of changes to the CPM or ownership or maintainership information. We have this tool called the AZGeo We Love Your Input web tool. It's a website that you can go to view and approve your agency's CPM. You can also notify ADOT and any other stakeholders of changes in the CPM, the ownership, or even the maintainership. We've even included a validation tool story map where it'll walk you through how to use the tool, as well as information on how to get a login account that will let you access the site. The login account is completely free, but you do need one in order to access the website. And so I'm going to do a short demonstration just to show you I mean, how easy this is to use. If you wanted to validate your CPM, even if there's no changes that you need to report, we would really appreciate it if you come into this tool. You can click on this agency summary button in the top, select your agency, and then load agency streets. It'll tell you the total CPM for the area, as well as broken out by federal functional class. You can even download the data as a CSV file if you prefer working in a table. If this number looks correct, we would really appreciate you clicking on the approve mileage button here at the bottom. This informs us that you have verified, reviewed and verified that this information does look correct. However, throughout the year, if at any time you know of a road that has changed ownership or maintainership, you can come into the same tool, zoom into the road, and when you click on it, down here at the bottom, you'll get a table listing out details about the road, including who the current owner and maintainer is. If you know this information needs to be updated, you can click on the suggested change button, which will open up a window that will walk you through different steps to pick a new owner, a new maintainer, or even identify whether the road should be counted as a CPM or not. Once you click the save and notify button, this will inform ADOT as well as other relevant stakeholders of this change so they can review and then approve the change eventually. So the important takeaways that I'd like to make for this presentation is the CPM has increased overall statewide, and that's largely due to feedback that we received from your agencies and others. And so please continue to let us know of any changes in ownership or maintainership or in changes in CPM using the AZGO We Love Your Input tool. The ADOT traffic count status map is there to show you where traffic count data might be missing. If you have any traffic data that is not already in the system, please make sure to load it through the MS2 website. And then finally, if you have any questions regarding the CPM ownership verification process, the AZGO tool that I demonstrated, feel free to contact myself or please contact Sonia if you have any traffic data related questions. And this final slide has all our contact information for you. So that concludes my presentation. And once again, thank you all for your time today.
I can add a comment.
Go ahead.
So thank you for your presentation. We appreciate that. That's a great presentation. This is Vinny. So historically, the way that each MPO approaches traffic count responsibilities a little bit different. Historically, what CYMPO's done is we've really relied on our local public agencies to really do the work that they're typically already doing and share that data. So I guess I would just use this as a reminder that, again, it's critically important that we appreciate the traffic counts that you do and that you would verify and share this. And if we don't have that, I guess the alternative is we would use CYMPO budget planning dollars for traffic counting activities. So, you know, kind of how do you want us to approach it? Either we can spend some planning dollars and we can go out and do it, or if you're already doing it, which you have historically, we appreciate it and just share it. And that would be my preferred option. Again, some MPOs do hire, you know, consultants, staff, equipment, whatever, to actually take on that responsibility. But we've looked to the locals to help us with that. So thank you.
And I'd like to echo that. Sage Donaldson here from ADOT, Data Analytics Manager. We recently completed a statewide traffic data collection study, which looked at data and collection methods throughout the state. And one of the things that we did really find was that traffic counting is really best done by the road owners and the locals. So I think that's a really good point to make, and that's a really good way to continue business. So.
Can we get a copy of this presentation? That way it has contacts in there and stuff. Also the link to the database exchange for CPM.
And again, just clarification, at this point, CYMPO has not done any direct traffic counts itself. So any of the data that you show that's under the CYMPO number, is all directly from you. So when it shows that we're at a certain percentage, that is solely dependent on whatever it is you historically have verified or you add to it. So I just wanted to add that clarification. Dan has his hand up.
Dan, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I got a quick question in regards to Yavapai County. We do an annual HERF report for all the roads that the county maintains as public roads. Is that kind of the starting point that is used for CPM in Yavapai County for the unincorporated areas?
Sort of. This year we actually implemented a new process where we did spatially reconcile the HERF reports. Obviously, HERF and CPM are slightly different. CPM does not need to be verified by the state by an engineer or a PE at all. It goes straight to the federal government. We did use the HERF files, though. I believe we used Yavapai County's HERF files specifically. And we're going to kind of try to continue to roll that process out where we do rectify with the local spatial HERF files that are coming in. The next kind of push for CPM, not just using HERF files, but connecting the E911 systems will be kind of the next push that we'll do.
Okay, yeah.
But sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Obviously, the county, maintains a lot of roads, but there are hundreds of miles of private roads, if you will, that are not maintained by the county, but certainly utilized by the public. There may even be some dedication to the public, but it's not a part of our county maintained system. So I just didn't know how that was getting sorted out, because I don't know that the county is going to make a determination in regards to a private road, even though it may not be gated or something like that.
Sure. Lucas, would you mind going back to the CPM slide that you had up? That's a really, really good point to make. And that is incorporated in some of our processes where the road is probably justifiable for CPM because it's getting used for the public. It's not gated. It's not an administrative route, but it is privately owned. And we do consider those on kind of a case-by-case basis part of CPM. I'm trying to recall what exactly we did for Yavapai County. But in a lot of other places, we used a bunch of different methods. We pulled data from other places. We went to other data contributors. We used aerial images to try to see what could actually count if it was a private road. And we used the maintainership too as kind of an influence to tell us whether or not that seemed like it would be eligible for CPM. So we did think of that. It's obviously not a perfect process, and we're kind of still getting it, getting our feet under it. But that is a really good point. And so some of those roads are included for CPM, and some of them aren't, just kind of depending on the status of the road.
Okay, that helps answer my question. I appreciate the feedback, and obviously, if you need input on that, on decisions in regards to some of those private roads, we're happy to have conversations on that. We've got some staff that, we do regular accounting, so I'm not too worried about counting, and we provide that data, I think, pretty regularly. But the CPM thing was a new one on me, and I appreciate the feedback.
Sure. Yeah, and one of the things that Lucas talked about here was sorry, I think I froze for a second. One of the things that Lucas went through there was the We Love Your Input tool. So, that's one of the big things that, we are asking you to go and validate that ownership and make sure that what we do have in there is accurate, that we are not counting a bunch of non-Yavapai County owned roads, or we're not counting a bunch of alleyways as part of CPM or something like that. So we do really appreciate whatever input or whatever help you're willing to give.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
A reminder to the TAC that your staff time is also counted towards in-kind time. So I think Lindsay or Allison sent out an email recently related to traffic count. So anything that you and your staff do related to this would help towards the annual match responsibility of CYMPO.
Sage, it was brought up too about how often we do counting. My understanding is neighborhood of 4 to 5 years is very reasonable for even growing areas.
Depends on the functional classification of the roadway, but that's pretty accurate. Everything functionally classified above a rural major collector, sorry to get it right in my head, needs to be counted every 6 years. So I think that's pretty much on point for this area.
Okay, good.
Urban minor collectors need to be counted every 3 years.
Thank you. Anything else? CPM, HPMS folks? Very good. That's the last item we have today. If there's any other discussion, we'll move on to item number 13, adjournment.
So moved.
Nobody's objecting.
Been moving a second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none.
Thank you all.